Hello. Today we have the pleasure of having Peter Bono join us today. Peter is the manager of the Program Management Office at the University of Washington. He oversees UW IT's project portfolio of 30 to 50 projects. He manages a team of 9 professional PMs and is responsible for the training and mentoring of dozens of adjunct PMs. He also teaches enterprise project management in information organizations at the University of Washington's Information School. He comes from the Fortune 100, where he managed an IT PMO with over 40 direct reports. So thank you for joining us, Peter. How are you today?
I'm doing just fine, thank you.
Great. So to start off, how do you define portfolio management? Is it different for IT initiatives than other business initiatives?
Without getting too pedantic, I think we have to define both terms, portfolio and management. Portfolio can be an amorphous blob of any sort in our world. Portfolio to project is a many-to-many relationship, meaning that a project can be in many portfolios, a portfolio can have many projects. You might see a subset that I have an overlapping subset with. Mm-hmm. Furthermore, we need to have nested portfolios. Anything that somebody wants to see in our world is a portfolio. Now, management. Do I own the projects? Not in my world, no. They're owned by the sponsors, the people who sign the checks, the people who own the people who work on the projects. So now we've defined portfolio and management. My job is to give an overview of all those projects, all those programs to our portfolio review board, which consists of all the CIO's direct reports.
Okay.
And the second half of the question was?
Is it different for an IT initiative than for other business initiatives?
You know, I drive by the new dorms they build and I go, how would anyone manage that project? Oh my God, look at that. I'm sure that those poor guys drive by, if they could ever see us working, and say, oh my God, how do you manage an IT project? There's nothing tangible there.
Right.
So it's real different to have IT portfolios. Now, our projects may seem to be non-related, but it would be hard for you as a professor to have a learning management system like Canvas in class if there were no network under it. Mm-hmm. So it is a big chewy wad that we're dealing with here. Okay,
great. So can you briefly describe a portfolio you're currently working with?
The portfolio that I manage is pretty much all we do in IT. So we have things for research computing, we have things for improving the student experience, for helping in the classroom. We own the network, we own telephony, data centers, all kinds of things. So we have all these different kinds of projects. Many times the resources on these projects aren't fungible. We can't just take a network engineer and put him or her on Canvas, our learning management system. So we have to mind those resource constraints pretty carefully.
Okay, and so how would you ensure the optimal resource usage? How do you do that?
It's really hard to do unless everyone does it on the same system.
Right.
Sticky notes on walls don't work very well because no one else can see them. We have a lot of shared services organizations, a lot of people who do user experience across a whole bunch of different business organizations and functions. Mm-hmm. And then we have people who, as I said, cannot do a shared service to save their soul. All they do is telephony. End of story.
Right. Okay. So what are the components of this portfolio and how do they relate to each other?
We try to stick to PMI's definitions where it makes sense. So Our overall portfolio has a series of programs in it, and the word program is differentially defined. Some people use it to mean a group of people like a department. But we try to stick to it's a series of related projects which, when managed together, accrue benefits that would not obtain if managed separately. That's straight PMI stuff, right? So we have programs and projects there. Our world is primarily based on the project side. We don't get into operations as part of our portfolio. We have to make allowances for that.
Right.
If your department of people has a bunch of stuff they have to do to keep running, to keep the lights on, keep the trains running, well, then we're going to have to decrement the availability of those people.
So do you know how it aligns with UW's resources and with its strategic objectives?
Yeah, it's very important for us to make sure that anything that is proposed as a project first goes through a process. We call them the first few paragraphs. What is this about? An abstract. That morphs into, after a series of approvals by our portfolio review board, the sponsors, me, some other folks, into a business case. That business case forces them from a drop-down list to check off one or more of our strategic goals, things like improved research, improved student experience, better administrative, better decision-making, those kinds of things. And those goals don't change very frequently. We've had the same basic set for the last 3 years. So without any link to those, do not proceed, do not pass go.
That's great. So the list of goals is pretty clear. Have about a few of them. Great, good. So what are some examples of benefits that have been realized with the portfolio?
Yeah, one thing is just the visibility to all the portfolio, all the components. Second is to get a health read on each one of them. We do red, yellow, green indicators, things like that. Third, we have a Gantt chart that shows at the project level one line for each project, so you can see all the projects in the portfolio and when they're due to be completed. That helps us prevent change fatigue if we try and deploy a bunch of things in the same group at once. The big deal is we need to make sure that people are maintaining that information, that our portfolio management system is the primary means of communication with the portfolio review board. Unless the PRB folks get that, they're running blind.
Right. So describe the process for defining the portfolio, and are there any key documents that are always developed when you define one?
Yeah, so I talked about the abstract goes into a business case. Then from that point forward, something in our software package becomes a project. At that point, we say, okay, up until the next gate, and here again, we're doing PMI, stage gate pretty much stuff. Until that initiation gate, what we want of you is CBS1. Oh, this is good. Charter, budget, and spider chart, version 1. The charter is a basic charter. It's got all the stuff you'd expect to see in a charter. The budget has projections primarily based on contributed labor, our own IT people and what their hours are, because that's our primary constrained resource.
Right.
The third is a spider chart, which is, some folks call it a radar chart. It's like a spoked diagram with different risk elements for each one that go green, yellow, red. Toward the outside, if things are in red, you're going to want to talk to your sponsor and your project team about that. For example, we have technological uncertainty here. We don't know what we're doing in this tool set. Or we have scope uncertainty here. We don't know what the sponsor wants us to do. Okay, you get to that spot. Now they come to the PRB for that first gate. Now, if they're an agile project, we have a slightly different set of deliverables. We just are developing these deliverables right now. One is an elevator statement that tells why we're doing this in very simple terms and how it differentiates from any competing systems or lack of any action. The second is a focus matrix. We have the iron triangle, fast, cheap, good. You ask the sponsor, which one is driving this? Which one is non-negotiable? That's going to help you create the rest of the project framework.
Okay.
We have a handful of things like that for agile folks. They have to outline their sprint cycle. They should have a pretty good list of their epics. That way, the PRB at that first gate, if it's an agile project, they know what they're signing the check for. What we've run into in the past is people say, we're agile, so don't ask us for any plan, don't ask us for any information on what we're going to complete. That doesn't work very well.
Right.
Okay. Then we go on to the next gate. The next gate is the planning gate. At that first gate, initiation gate, we ask for a 50% degree accuracy in your projection of the 3 components. By the time you get to the planning gate, we ask for a CBS2. That's the second revision of these things. So by that time, you've done some work in the background to say, I've created in a waterfall world my work breakdown structure. I've gotten estimates from the team. I've gotten the sequencing all down.
Right.
Now I can give you a pretty good estimate. It's plus or minus 20%. In the agile world, you're going to have to come up with the agile components. You're going to have to try and develop, maybe you do an initial sprint and get your velocity. You've got identified resources by name, committed by their resource managers. There's all kinds of negotiation that goes on in doing this. So we've got these components identified in the agile style and in the waterfall world. Once they get to that planning gate, then we say you're okay to go into execution. From that point forward, it's a matter of status reporting and coming back to the PRB each quarter for more important projects. For lesser important projects, they just have to update their data every 30 days.
So the agile projects also do the status reporting the same way, or is it a little different, or is it the same?
So far, it's the same. This is for us, it's an evolving process.
Okay.
So if we see that it's not working, we're going to have to change it.
Yeah. Okay.
We don't ask for that much really in the status. We ask for some comments, which are free form. We ask for red, yellow, green indicators for scope, schedule, budget, issues, and overall.
Okay. That's great. So do you use any change management processes for the portfolio?
If there are substantive changes to any of the big indicators, we ask for a rebaseline. And that's essentially going back to the last gate and saying, okay, I told you it was going to take 6 months. It turns out it's going to take 18 months. Yeah, that's substantial. We need to hear from you. Why? And is it still a go? The Portfolio Review Board could shut it down at that point. That's their prerogative.
So, So describe what the role of the portfolio manager is. So it's different than the project manager and the program manager, right? So.
Yeah, I'm not a very good project manager. Voice of experience. But as a portfolio manager, one of the things I need to do is work with these adjunct project managers and help them understand why they're doing what they're doing and what the components are. Help them understand that being a project manager, 90% of your job is communication.
Right.
And not all of that communication is going to be happy news. So it's okay to bring bad news. Matter of fact, that's your job. And that's kind of different for most folks who are waiting for the pipeline to drop more stuff on their desk.
Right.
So we encourage them bad news early, and we say it's okay to argue with your boss as the sponsor. In their day jobs, that's a career-limiting action.
Right.
For a PM, that's your job.
Right.
So those are things that obtain in this chunk. The question again?
So what's the role of the portfolio manager?
So,
different than projects.
So I do the mentoring stuff with the adjuncts. I communicate with the PRB. I facilitate that process every month. I help on the intake process, the abstract and business case, and I send out nagograms.
What is that?
Well, it's a nagogram. Come on, were you paying attention?
You mean nag or neg?
Nag.
Nag, okay.
So these folks need to be reminded every once in a while that you need to communicate with your bosses, the sponsors, the PRB. You're late, you're going to show up on the PRB agenda, which is automated. If they're 30 days late on updating their information on their project status, they show up on the Bad Boys and Girls report.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nagogram.
Yeah,
I like
nagogram. We also show on that same PRB agenda anything that has anything other than green in one of those status indicator fields.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Peter, for joining us today. We really appreciate your insight.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.